Hi, and welcome back to Music Industry 360. This is Randall Foster from Symphonic, and it's my distinct pleasure to welcome my good friend Scott Welch here today on the podcast. So Scott is a gentleman I've known for a long time and have seen him through many iterations of his involvement in the music business. He's always on to something cool and new every time we talk, and he's kind of comes from a background that's I think incredibly impressive. Scott started as an artist manager, managing and working with the likes of Alanis Morissete, Leanne Rimes, Steve Perry, Paula Abdul, Collective Soul, CNC Music Factory, and a number of other incredible artists. Together, his artists have sold more than 75 million records, which is pretty incredible. Currently, he is also doing a lot of work with regards to technology and in the music space as an advisor for Soundstripe and Single music, and is on the board of directors for Musicians on Call, which is an incredible nonprofit that brings live and recorded music to the bedsides of patients in healthcare facilities. So Scott, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Hey, thanks, Randall. I guess I was the only last guy you could get, right? Everybody else said no, so you got stuck with me today. Is that what happened?
Quite the contrary, sir. Quite the contrary. You've got such an incredible history in this business, and you and I have known each other here for a good long time in the Nashville space. But I think you're a really multifaceted guest, as we don't often have people who are experts in artist management, but also have an acute understanding and knowledge of the tech sector and really the convergence of technology and music and where that meets. So I think you're the perfect guest for this. And no, you're not the last guest. We have many more coming after you.
Good.
So wanting to jump into it, obviously, I know you got your start in management, unless there's something I'm missing prior to management. But can you give us an overview of your early days in music? What really motivated you to pursue music? And how did you get to that moment where you were a fantastic artist manager?
So my dad was military. We lived all over the world, and he got stationed in California when I started high school. And he was flying overseas, and so I was one of the first kids in the neighborhood. I had a real Pioneer component stereo that he brought back from Japan. So a lot of music at my house all the time. We lived about an hour outside of San Francisco, so went to a lot of shows in San Francisco in the late 70s and kind of got addicted to music. So I thought I was going to go to law school and do entertainment law. So I went to college, and I hated the law. I hated it. So I started hanging out with bands. I was an engineer. I started out as a sound engineer, got my union card, kind of realized all the girls hung out with bands, which was probably a good thing in those days, and went on the road in the late 80s with a lot of the hair metal bands like Quiet Riot and Faster Pussycat and Metallica and Van Halen as a production manager, drive the t-shirt truck, tour manager, that sort of stuff. And decided at some point in time that I didn't want to be on the road forever. So a business manager that I had become friends with said, there's these guys that are managing a girl, and they aren't really managers or radio promotion guys. Could you help them out? And it was Paula Abdul. And so that was kind of my first music client as, quote, as a manager. And
that's fantastic.
After a couple years, 2 years, she fired them, and she said to me, look, you're probably not ready to do this by yourself. I'm going to go get another manager. Would you come along? I went, yeah. And so I was really fortunate. She hired a guy named Bob Cavallo. Bob managed Earth, Wind and Fire and Prince, who are all the Purple Rain years. And I mentored under him. I was so fortunate. I got to learn so much of the business under him. So we started a management company, and some of our first clients was the Goo Goo Dolls, and we had Steve Perry, and we had Paula and Earth, Wind and Fire, and I signed Alanis, and then we signed Green Day and Seal, and we kind of built the company that way.
Wow, that's it. That's incredible. I didn't know that you'd started with Paula. and obviously teaming up with such a legend. I imagine that you learned a great deal in those early days.
Yeah, Bob taught me a lot. He taught me that one rule as an artist manager: you can lead him to water, but you can't stop him from jumping in and drowning. And as a manager, you learn that way, that you can only show them the way. They don't always take it.
That's awesome. What did you love most about management? I mean, it had to be exciting to, I remember Alanis's first record. I remember the excitement around that and all of that.
Yeah, I think the excitement was when the artist calls you, hey, I just finished something in the studio. Why don't you come hear it? And you get to hear something for the first time, and you go, and it knocks you out. And then before long, the whole world's heard it. And that's, I think, the thing that's most exciting.
Being there first, being the one to help usher it through to help it succeed.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was the kid that would stand in line to go to a concert and be up against the barricade for Kiss and AC/DC. And so I still get that buzz in my stomach when the band's getting ready to go on stage.
That's so exciting. So you did the management thing full time. At what point did you start pivoting more into your advisory role that I think you're doing as much as managing at this point?
Yeah. So the management company merged with a film and television company that managed Ellen DeGeneres and Will Ferrell and a group of artists like that. And it became big. It was called Mosaic. And these two guys came to see me who were Stanford grads, and they had this idea for a ticketing company. And I'd just been through a situation with one of my clients where she was complaining about the fact that how come none of the fans can get any of the good seats. And it was the guys that had Stubhub, and no one ever heard of secondary ticketing, but I was fascinated by it. So I came on board as an advisor, put some money in, and we went off and running. And I realized kind of the same skill set that you manage artists, you could manage entrepreneurs with. So I had signed a country artist here in Nashville, and my partner went off to run Hollywood Records, and I didn't want to live in LA anymore. And so I sold my part of the business and moved to Nashville. And it was during the time when the record business was awful. 2003, 4, 5, 6, business was bad in those days. And so I started to really be interested in the technology side, and I started talking to someone, and it led to something else. And, now there's 5 or 6 things that I'm doing that are based in that space.
Well, I don't know how you keep all the plates spinning and also still managing. I mean, you do have some current artists that you are working with.
Yeah, I have a great partners. It's all about people. It's about putting good people on your team and delegating and being confident in their skill set and letting them run.
That's awesome. So as far as the folks that you're currently advising, obviously you and I met a little bit across the table when I was assisting Soundstripe a little bit years ago. Soundstripe and Single are both really incredible companies with an incredible story behind them. Do you want to talk a little bit about those and about the importance?
Yeah, the things I look for are things that are disruptive, that come in and fill a gap in the marketplace. Or I don't look for companies that try to reinvent the wheel. I look for disruption. And so Soundstripe just filled a space that nobody else was filling in the sync business. And there's been several competitors now since then. And Single is creating technology where the record business is finally figuring out that they need to go direct to the consumer. For the longest time, we'd sell a CD to a fan, and all we know about the fan was where they lived, what city. We knew nothing else about them because the barcode would tell us the CD was bought in Nashville, but we didn't know anything. We didn't know their age, how to contact them, any of that sort of stuff. And we're starting to see that artists are taking more and more control of their careers, and it's not giving away their revenue streams to third parties as much.
Yeah, no, that's That's awesome. And for those who don't know, I'm going to back up a little bit with regards to Soundstripe. The elevator pitch on this, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, Scott, is Soundstripe is a company that provides content, that provides musical content for creators, and for creators on a subscription basis, which is I think one of the things that really revolutionized their offering. And when I first learned of them, that was the thing to me that I thought, while we're on a transactional business in licensing almost everywhere, the concept that a content creator could basically have a small annual fee they paid for access to a massive evolving catalog, I think was the value proposition there.
Well, I think all these things are convergence, and the convergence was as more people were creating content, they had no idea about sync licensing. They wouldn't know how to get hold of a publisher, and publisher for a lot of these artists, these content creators, was never going to return their call because the fees were so low. So we democratized those things so that if you're a guy that's making Instagram posts, you could get great music to go in your posts and not be in violation of copyright.
No, I think that's incredibly valuable in the space, and obviously also providing opportunity for local producers and artists to make money, which is at the end of the day.
We pay our contractors, so a lot of our guys make a really good living just creating music. I don't have to worry about not getting paid.
So pivoting over to single, and you mentioned a little bit the direct to fan piece there. But I think the really interesting thing that you and I have discussed historically with regards to single is not only their Shopify integration for the direct to fan thing, but also their attention to the NFT in a time when this music business, we're all trying to figure NFTs out. Web3 and NFT are the panel topics du jour at this moment.
Yeah. I think the other thing that's exciting about single is the data collection. Single will allow you to, query up the top 50 fans in Nashville, what they spent their money on, where they live, what size they wear, information you can't get any other way. So it really lets you build a strong relationship with your fans.
Which then, of course, you can put your management hat on and speak to the fact that once you have that information, there are actionable items in the local markets, correct?
Yes. We're at a point now, if you have 10,000 great fans, you can make a nice living as an artist if you know how to market.
Yeah, or 1,000, the old true fan principle that I've always loved. 10,000 is better than 1,000.
Yeah, that's true.
Very cool. Are there any other tech companies that you're working with that you'd like to talk about before we move on to some of your other items? Yeah, there's another disrupt company that I really love is this company called Rocket Songs, which allows, as you know, in most publishing catalogs, 10% of the songs make all the money. So if you have a catalog of 1,000 songs, 100 of them make all the money. There's 900 songs that are just collecting dust. It's the same concept that Soundstripe got started with. And so Rocket Songs allows you as a songwriter to upload your content, and artists from all over the world can download that, can take those songs and record them. So it's created a marketplace, a global marketplace for songs. Somebody like Warner Chappell probably has 2 million songs in its library that have never been monetized. That's crazy. It's crazy to think about that. But coming from publishing, I remember the dormant catalog and the question of
and how it works. An artist holds lots of songs. They decide what they're going to cut. Sometimes songs just don't get cut because there's another song that's like it. And there's a lot of gems in catalogs, and it is on a labor, it's hard to pitch all those. But if you have a platform where the world can come in and sift through and pick those songs, there's revenue to be made.
That's very cool. More democratization of the music, I see. I'm seeing a little bit of a trend here with you, sir.
Yeah. Yes. I want artists to make every penny they can. And it's hard to get songwriters to realize that what you create, once you create it emotionally, it becomes a widget. How do we monetize that widget?
Yeah,
Don't get your knickers in a twist about it. Just let people respond to the music.
that's very cool. What a great ethos to run on. So looking towards the future musically, what you're seeing, what's got your blood boiling right now in a good way? What's got it pumping? What's exciting you about the future of music and the future of this industry that we're in, that we've dedicated our lives to?
For me, I think the live performance is coming back strong. I think it's great if you hear some artists on TikTok, but then you go see them live and you go, it's awful. And I think you're going to see artists that can perform and give people an experience, an emotional and physical experience, are the artists that are going to be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm also noticing myself the prevalence of more rock in
Yes.
the popular space. You obviously, you've been through it, basically every genre, but kind of core to everything you've worked on in your early career, rock and roll was a big piece of that.
Yeah, it was funny. I was at Guitar Center about 2 weeks ago, and I stopped to get a piece of gear for one of my clients, and I spoke to a couple of the salesmen. I go, how's business? They go, man, it's booming. Kids are coming in and wanting to play guitar and drums, and it's such a healthy thing for kids to be involved in music. I'm hoping that bodes well for our future.
Well, I think, the pandemic did a lot of harm to this industry, but at the same time, I think music instrument sales were at an all-time high through the pandemic. Yeah. People taking up new instruments and taking on new challenges in some of the dormant time that they had. So it's just,
yeah, I think the biggest challenge is record companies need to get back to building artist careers and quit looking at numbers. Get talented people who can see the vision artist has, learn how to make that vision come true, and you'll have successful artists, not just look at how many spins they have on a single that may not translate into anything else. We need real artists, people who this is the only thing they can do with their lives.
That's a really interesting point. When I talk to people that are in A&R, the increasing focus is on platforms like TikTok and grabbing the next zeitgeist off of TikTok and I think in a lot of cases, trying to make, someone who caught the wave an artist versus taking an artist and helping them be a better artist. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. I mean, I had lunch with someone from one of the major agencies yesterday, and they've been burned a bunch of times because they've signed artists. They've signed as someone that had a song or two on TikTok. Nobody will buy tickets for it because there's no emotional connection to it.
Yeah, it's a wild world we're living in that sense.
Yes.
Outside of the A&R issues of the labels, I have to ask, and I've asked everybody we've talked to the same question: what do you think industry-wide is the biggest challenge facing us? I certainly the artist side of things is important, and is something that getting back to the hair on the back of your neck principle, helping with some of the signings, is important. But if you had all the power in the world and you could change anything about this industry, and what would you say the biggest thing for us to overcome is in 2022?
I would give them a big dose of patience. Because
the whole industry?
Yeah, because so many times you look at the great artists that we grew up with, sometimes they didn't happen until the third record. Sometimes so many of these companies now, it's about shareholder stock price, and people aren't patient to let things percolate. Sometimes it takes some time. And when you and I were growing up, there were a lot of great A&R guys that knew how to bring out the best in artists, and they had great marketing guys, and there's patience in developing an artist's career. And we're kind of not in that world right now. It's coming back, I think.
Yeah.
I think labels are starting to realize that longevity is to their advantage.
Well, because catalog sells. I mean, the catalog is carrying the industry right now.
Yeah.
Of the artists that you managed, I mean, Alanis was when you got her. I mean, that record was hot fire. Was there anything that you worked with as a manager that patience applied in that you're really proud of?
Her, because when I met her 2 years before Jagged Little Pill even came out.
Okay, I had assumed you came on closer to the
No,
release of Jagged
I
Little
was.
Pill.
She originally was signed to a Canadian company and had a couple pop records in Canada. It was very successful, and I became friends with her publisher, and her publisher said, "Hey, you manage Paula. Would you see if we could put out Alanis's records in America?" And I listened to him and I said, "Look, we've got Paula, we got Janet Jackson, we got Jody Watley, we got 12 girls like this. There was just something about her." And I said, "Well, let's see if she can write her own songs." And so we moved her from her home in Ottawa, where she's living with her parents, to a little apartment in Toronto, and just started putting her with writers. And she came to LA and sleep on my couch, and we just put her with writers. And then she wrote with Glenn Ballard, and that kind of opened the door. And Glenn, after the second time, called me and said, "Hey, look, this girl's special. I know we don't have a deal. I own a studio. Let's just make a record." So that's what we did. That was the process. We were just making a record till we got a deal.
It's so incredible. And these are the stories that give me butterflies about the industry, you know.
Yeah.
Alanis's, that record, Jagged Little Pill, to me, the songwriting, the depth of the material in it was what made it special. It was one of the first records in my life that was, you know, I felt like was written for me, for my generation, for
I also think it also was the first time a woman was saying those kind of things.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, I think she busted a bit of a glass ceiling with regards to what women were allowed to say in rock and roll.
Well, I think she also proved to the industry that a woman could make them lots of money. I mean, she just wasn't a little pretty faced who was going to go dance around the stage. That was not who she was.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Any other anecdotal stories from those early times in management that you care to share with us today? I really, the whole goal here is to introduce you to our listener, but I'm one of those people that I just love the history of the business of music. I love the people who came before us and the stories that they have to share. So anything that comes to mind that you'd like to impart on us with regards to your management?
Yeah, I think sometimes when it's happening, you're in the middle of it, you don't really realize how big it is until you step back. That record's at 38 million units and it's still selling today, and it's gold and platinum in every country in the world. It's incredible. Hard to believe when you look back at it now.
Well, but truly timeless music, those songs are evergreens at this point.
It was funny. I hadn't listened to the record in a couple of years, and I worked out in the gym about 2 months ago, and I put it on. I go, wow, this thing still holds up.
Yeah. You got to wonder if a lot of the stuff happening today is going to hold up in 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
So
there'll be some gems. There'll be some things that will. I think the pop stuff will be harder to hold up.
So interesting to think about for sure. So this is the point in the interview where we normally ask a couple of final questions. These are a little lighter fare for you. There's no right or wrong answer here, though I'll judge depending on what you say.
Yes.
And so the first question here is, what's your favorite current band or artist that you're listening to? What's the thing that just really got you going? And I'll throw another caveat in that you don't manage.
Yeah, got it.
That's cheating if you get to name your own band.
Yeah, I know. I think for me it just depends on what day of the week it is and what time of day it is. And I'm a guy that gets up in the morning. I can turn AC/DC on 10. I'm ready to go. So it depends. I think because we had Earth, Wind and Fire, I really like Bruno Mars and the Silk Sonic record. It's just brings me back to that sort of feeling. And there's a lot of really good young rock acts out there, I think, that are bubbling under, you know, everybody from, oh my God, you know, you're going to ask me that.
Sorry.
Band Camino, bands like that. They're interesting. Olivia Rodrigo, I feel like, is Alanis a little bit. You know, it feels like she kind of has that same sort of vibe. Listen to interviews and hear her talk. Stuff
Well,
those are the kind of things.
Definitely trailblazing for right now, for this moment musically.
Yeah.
Which I think we can.
I'm a sucker. It has to be musical for me. It has to have melody for me. I struggle with some things that aren't melodic to like. If I can't sing it or hear it in my head, then it's probably not something I'm listening to.
Yeah, that's what, when I was in publishing, we referred to that as a sticky hook. If it doesn't have a sticky hook, what's the point, you know? That's all great. So final question here for you, sir. And this is maybe the hardest question I've asked you this entire time, but pizza or Chinese food, what would be your choice?
Nothing better than a really good pizza margarita.
All right. There we have it. Well, thank you, Scott. It's been a pleasure to have you on today and share your pearls of wisdom. You know, you've certainly done so many great things in the music industry, and you continue to give back at every turn. And so it's just really lovely to have you here and to hear some of these stories. And
I've been fortunate to work with a lot of creative people, and you don't do it on your own. You have lots of help. You have support from family, you have support from other people. I'm a big believer that you take a meeting with everybody, you talk to everybody. You never know. I got helped along the way so many ways, and so I kind of have that same approach with everybody I talk to.
Well, that's awesome. And we appreciate you being here and taking this meeting today. And so thank you again so very much, my friend. And once again, friends, this is Music Industry 360. I'm Randall Foster. This podcast is sponsored by Symphonic, and it's our distinct pleasure to be here with you today. Stick around for upcoming episodes here coming soon. Thank you.
Make sure you get my check out today, okay? You know.
It's in the mail. It's in the mail.
Thanks, brother.
All right. Thank you.
See ya.